I've noticed that people are a little too excited about Mattel taking back the global rights for DC merchandise going forward, and I'm not sure that we should be all that excited about this. Because you know what the greatest predictor of the future is? The past. And if we look at Mattel's history with the DC license, it ain't pretty. For everyone who's been living under a rock for the past few days, Mattel has regained the rights to make DC toys, action figures, etc., etc. And this is kind of a big deal because it means that we're probably going to see 6-inch action figures of DC characters again. Naturally, this has all the 6-inch only man children jumping up, clicking their heels, and clapping their hands with glee. But it really shouldn't, because I know it's been 5 years, but have we all collectively forgotten Mattel's DC toys? They were awful. They had 20 years with the license and they barely did anything with it. Sure, they released a lot of action figures, but it's pretty easy to release a lot of action figures when it's literally all the same body. Oh, what great character selection they had on this one body they repainted hundreds of times. My God, they did so much reuse on DC action figures that it made Hasbro look like a custom shop. Mattel's DC Universe and DC Multiverse action figures were the ugly friend that made Hasbro's Marvel Legends look pretty by comparison. Do I really think that's going to change 5 years later after they reacquire the license? Of course not. They're not hungry enough to make big changes. They're not hungry enough to put out good product. And yeah, I've seen the Batman prototypes that have been making the rounds, and you know what? They're not that impressive. For God's sake, it didn't even make it to shelves. We're really hinging all our hopes on a figure that might have been good? Are we mad? No, if we want to take a good look at what we can probably expect from Mattel's handling of DC going forward, it's probably gonna be somewhere along the lines of what they've been doing with WWF. I'm not saying WWE, and what they do with their He-Man Masterverse stuff. That's what everyone's citing right now, the Masterverse stuff and the WWF stuff. And I gotta say, I've taken a look at both these lines just to reacquaint myself with what Mattel is offering, and I'm not that impressed. The Masterverse stuff is okay. I see cloth capes, I see some okay sculpting, not outstanding sculpting. It's not like they spent oodles and oodles of work on these things. We're just not going to get the same level of detail that we've been getting from McFarlane's DC Multiverse. So I know that these figures, at the very least, are going to be simplified greatly. Not to mention, when I look at the Masterverse stuff, I think that Mattel has never seen a butterfly joint they didn't hate. Also, while some of these look like they have quite a few accessories, they don't really come with stands. So that's going to be a sorely missed piece that was included with McFarlane's DC Multiverse. While we're talking about the Masters of the Universe Masterverse stuff, I do think it's funny that people keep pointing to this line as evidence of Mattel's competency with articulation and sculpt, etc., on a 7-inch line, and in the same breath, they're pining for a 6-inch wave. And then there's the matter of WWF Ultimates, which people have been posting about constantly too. These are all over the place for me because I've seen a lot of these WWF action figures that are way too jacked for certain characters. Like, for instance, I saw a Bret Hart that had all kinds of muscles and stuff, and come on, man, Bret Hart wasn't a jacked dude. Why is he all muscular? I can't get behind some of these sculpts that they got going on. Others are pretty okay looking, but there's this cheap feel about the line that doesn't look right. They don't look human to me, I think, is what I'm driving at. It's like, for all their efforts and despite all the years of experience, Mattel still can't figure out how to make an action figure look human. They only know exaggerated forms. They only know how to make things look like cartoons. And if they're doing something that's mimicking Hasbro's old WWF action figures from the early 90s, those look good. But when they try to make a character look human, it looks awful. And these WWF action figures have that simple, unfinished look about them that just sucks. And they're way too expensive for what you're getting too. They're $32 or something for this unfinished hunk of plastic. Sure, they come with cloth jackets and stuff like that, and they come with heads and hands and faces and miscellaneous other accessories. That's cool too, but come on, man, $32 for this? Is that what we have to look forward to when Mattel handles the DC license? $32 action figures with a bunch of these accessories and a cheap plastic look. Are the live action figures gonna look all gnarly like the WWF stuff does? I don't want that. I think when Mattel debuts their stuff, they're going to be able to crank out some decent looking comic book style action figures. But then when they get to the movie action figures, that's when it all comes crashing down. Because we've seen their movie action figures before, guys. We all remember those, and boy, they sucked. They sucked then, and they're going to suck now, just like these WWF figures do. The real kicker of this would be if they continued the line in 7 inches. I think that would be the funniest possible decision they could possibly do. If they decide to continue DC action figures in 7 inches, I'm going to make a video about that, and I'm going to cackle madly for the entire thing. It's just going to be like 8 minutes of cackling. But in all honesty, 7 inches is not a bad scale for superhero action figures, because it's just a more heroic looking scale. When you iron out the proportions and stuff like McFarlane's been doing, it looks a lot better. It looks a lot more like a comic book at that point. Over the past couple of years, DC Multiverse by them has gotten pretty decent. Now, there's always the lingering issues of ab articulation, thigh swivel, all that business. So we're not going to hand wave any of that, but they've done more to include more accessories. They've done more to include cloth capes. They've done more to make the scale look better. They've just done a lot of good across the board and introduced a lot of new ideas. Mattel isn't going to really do any of that, I don't think. I don't think we're going to see any new or necessarily even good ideas from Mattel. I think we're going to see a very cynical product. I think we're going to see a lot of things that simply cash in on what they think is going to make money. And I don't think the product is going to be there. I don't think they're willing to do it. So I would say temper your expectations, guys. Don't get your hopes up. Don't expect anything good. And if it turns out to be good, be pleasantly surprised. When they finally come out, we'll find one and we'll review it and we'll see what it's like. And if it's good, then I will eat my words. For the sake of DC, I hope that my opinion ages like milk and we get some good stuff. And if they're not any good, I wonder if we're going to have to wait another 20 years for Mattel to lose the license, or whether Warner Brothers Discovery is going to see what they're doing and just pull the plug early. Well, Soulmates, what do you think? Do you think that Mattel is going to put out some good stuff? Do you think that they're going to make the best DC product that we've ever seen? Or do you think this is going to fall flat on its face and it's going to be just awful? Let me know what you think down in the comments, guys, because I would love to hear what you think about this. And be sure to check out my other videos in the meantime, guys. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll catch you again soon. Have a great day, everybody.